Sign of a true messenger of God. Notable in the evangelical way of Brother Eli in his speeches were insulting terminologies hurled towards enemies of faith like tanga, gago, alol, inutil, tarantado, etc. In the superfluence of material evidences, he was consistent on these particular rhetorics that apparently have negative implication, how audience should appreciate it in light of opposition using it as derogative means to destroy us. But should we see it as something malevolent and hostile, being words that have social stigma as cursing, cussing, and trash-talking? Biblically though, Brother Eli using insults in his speeches is an ethical standard that reflects moral ascendancy and biblical influence, as justified for being essentially an exemplary moral. How moral are insults as ingredient of a godly speech? It is moral due to the fact that even Jesus used insults in dealing with his ministerial etiquette. Here are his words. He called a Gentile woman dog in Matthew 15 verses 22 to 27. He called Gentiles as dogs, anyone outside the household of Israel or the lost sheep. He called some particular Jews as serpents in Matthew 23 verses 31 and 33. He called some particular Jews as serpents and vipers in a rather derogatory tone, right? He called somebody a fox in Luke 13:32, though figuratively to mean a cunning person, yet the use of a lower species denotes it's permissible to compare someone to animals like calling someone monkey, etc. Here is another one. Matthew 23 verse 17. 17, Ye fools and blind, for whether is greater, the gold, or the temple that sanctifieth the gold? Unquote. He used the word ye fools, or in the vernacular is manda tanga keo, manda gago keo, manda bobo keo, manda manman keo. Basically an insult. And many other examples. Did Jesus intend this as sort of insults? Consulting other form of speeches, it is clearly confirming how consistent he is. For example, Matthew 15 verse 7. 7, Ye hypocrites, well did Isaiah prophesy of you, saying. Matthew 23 verse 27. 27, Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye are like unto whited sepulchres, which indeed appear beautiful outward, but are within full of dead men's bones, and of all uncleanness. Unquote. One is an insult, the other a sarcasm. So yes, clearly Jesus used insulting speech that modern society may look at as something demeaning, as a cuss word. So do you view this as sort of inappropriate for a Christian to imitate? No. These are exemplary, as Paul confirmed, because Jesus is a pattern of conduct, as it say. 1 Thessalonians 1 verse 6. 6, And ye became followers of us, and of the Lord, having received the word in much affliction, with joy of the Holy Ghost. Unquote. They will object and say, Jesus used insulting words because he can read the heart, thus eligible to judge, to say, someone is a dog or fool, etc. Much so, he is a judge. Yes, but insulting a person is based on righteous judgment, as it say. John 7 verse 24. 24, Judge not according to the appearance, but judge righteous judgment. Unquote. So for a judgment to be righteous, it doesn't necessitate that we read the heart, because saying someone is a dog or fool, etc. can be based from observing his deeds, or disposition, or words, etc. and not necessary to know his heart, right? Why am I saying this? Because Paul used insulting terminologies too, yet he cannot read the heart, for example. Galatians 3 verses 1 and 3. 1, O foolish Galatians, who hath bewitched you, that ye should not obey the truth, before whose eyes Jesus Christ hath been evidently set forth, crucified among you. 3, Are ye so foolish? Having begun in the Spirit, are ye now made perfect by the flesh? 1 Corinthians 15 verse 36. 36, Thou fool, that which thou sowest is not quickened, except it die. Acts 13 verse 10. 10, And said, O full of all subtlety and all mischief, thou child of the devil, thou enemy of all righteousness, wilt thou not cease to pervert the right ways of the Lord. Unquote. Paul used insulting terminologies like foolish, thou fool, child of the devil. In the vernacular is tanga ka gago kong anak ing demonyo. God authorized Christians to imitate Paul as it say. 1 Corinthians 11 verse 1. 1. Be followers of me, even as I also am of Christ. Philippians 4 verse 9. 9. And those things, which ye have both learned, and received, and heard, and seen in me, too, and the God of peace shall be with you. Having these as premise, then we can fairly conclude that Jesus and Paul using insults in their speeches is an ethical standard for a messenger of God to imitate, as adopting a moral etiquette of Christian speech. As reiterated. 1 Thessalonians 1 verse 6. 6. And ye became followers of us, and of the Lord, having received the word in much affliction, with joy of the Holy Ghost. 1 Peter 2 verse 21. 21. For even hereunto were ye called, because Christ also suffered for us, leaving us an example, that ye should follow his steps. Unquote. For an obligatory submission, we must imitate Jesus and Paul in things that are rather doable, viable, and permissible. This is a sign to know who are true messengers of God. They insult people, yet justified because it is obligatory as imitation to Jesus and Paul. These insults are not evil speech because it is permitted by God. So for a minister or pastor who don't use insulting speech is a hypocrite, a false messenger. Why? Logically, because they are not followers of Paul and Christ. Using insulting speech in like manner how Jesus and Paul executed their words and imitate them to say, Tangagago alol inutal tarantado is a sign of a true messenger of God, and anyone inhibiting from this primary edict, instead to be in opposition is a false messenger biblically speaking, that is. Thank you.